Hi, I'm Carissa. This is my YouTube channel. Welcome. So over the last week, I've been seeing BuzzFeed do a lot of mental health stuff. Some of the videos that I've seen lately have inspired me to kind of get out there and talk to you guys. And really what I'm doing it for is a little bit of accountability to someone other than myself or my partner. I guess this might be kind of intense. I'm not sure. I really think that it's important to share it, and I think that if I get a video going that's a good jumping off point, maybe you guys will have questions about certain things, and then I'll know kind of how to continue talking about it with you guys, which will make me feel more accountable. I think that talking about my mental health really helps for me to want to continue recovery and continue treatment because, you know, getting treatment is kind of really hard. I'm gonna start with adulthood because if I tried to talk to you guys about all of my childhood shit, this could go on forever. When I was 20 or 21, I was having a very hard time in my life. I was having a hard time getting to class. I was having a hard time holding relationships. I was having a hard time leaving the house. At a certain point, I was having a hard time leaving my bedroom. I had very bad emetophobia, which is the fear of vomiting, and somehow, some way that my anxiety and stuff very much concentrated on that fear. I developed OCD behaviors around the fear. It was not good. It was bad. And so I went to a therapist after seeing a commercial on TV that was like, I think it was a Cymbalta commercial, and it was like, depression hurts. And I was like, I'm fucking hurt. I'm really hurt. I'm hurting. So I went to a therapist and I was diagnosed with panic disorder and agoraphobia. A lot of people believe that panic disorder is consistent panic attacks. What it actually is, at the heart of what panic disorder is, it's the fear of having panic attacks, and that fear propagates more and more panic attacks. That's what differentiates it from anxiety. And agoraphobia is essentially the fear of having panic attacks out in public. It's the general fear of leaving one's safety net. For me, agoraphobia turned into a lot of different things. I would carry around trash cans anytime I went anywhere, or bags or something like that, thinking I was gonna throw up. Again, mental health is fucking weird, and you know, you do weird shit, and like, I mean, I look back at it now and I think, God, people must have thought I was so fucking strange, but I just did these weird things because, like, my anxiety told me to, you know, like... Did you guys hear that? My cat just slammed into the glass door, ran full speed into the sliding glass door. Are you okay, baby? Anyway, anxiety like manifests itself into really weird things, and your brain kind of gets stuck on certain things and you start to focus on certain things, and that's kind of how OCD happens, is you get anxious about things and you try to control things, and then it's just a fucking mess and you can't do anything. I mean, you can't do anything without doing these behaviors, these like safety behaviors that you build so that you can feel just a little bit better, so that you can feel like you just have a tiny bit of control. And you know, if I think about this, I've actually had those behaviors since I was a really small child. I've always done kind of ritualistic things, and I didn't do them openly. A lot of them were in my head. A lot of them were like ritualistic thinking. I had a few shower time habits that I would always do every time I was in the shower, and if I didn't get a chance to do them, then I was sure that the day was doomed. Someone was gonna die, something terrible was gonna happen, something terrible would happen to me. And you know, when I went to therapy and I was diagnosed, I was like, oh shit, yeah, I've been doing this a while. It's wild. A lot of these things came up for me because I was having kind of a hard time in my life. You know, my relationships were changing. I was 20 or 21, and the world is kind of fucking weird at 20 or 21, and I had been drinking a lot in the past, and I decided to stop drinking, and that brought up a lot of shit, and I just was not okay. So I went to therapy for the first time. And I was in therapy for a while, and I really worked on anxiety and panic, and I got out of my bedroom, and that was really, really nice. To be honest, I don't really remember what happened back then. When you're having panic attacks that often, I think that things kind of become a little bit blurry. I know that a lot of my friendships that were really important to me dissolved. At some point, therapy got really expensive and I kind of had to quit going, but I still had a lot of those tools that I needed to help me cope and stuff. I got into a couple relationships. I moved in with someone. I kind of created this new kind of safety net for myself. I went through one relationship, got into another, and I thought I was doing pretty good for a while. I really thought, okay, look at me. I kind of got this. And I wasn't okay. I was in a relationship with someone who was kind of abusive and was not very good to me. And we ended up breaking up after a really tough breakup where the person did a lot of really nasty things. When they were doing these nasty things, when I was in the relationship with them, my mental health was really deteriorating pretty quickly. I was becoming agoraphobic again. And because of the kind of emotional abuse that was happening, along with, you know, my past history of mental health issues, the decline happened pretty fast. By the time I got through the breakup, I was definitely kind of crumbling. I didn't know what to do. When I realized that I couldn't really hold down a job or anything because I was doing so poorly, I moved back in with my folks. I have had problems with eating disorders since I was probably like, I don't know, 10-ish maybe. A lot of my anxiety and stuff would manifest itself into restricting my eating, and around the time that I moved back in with my family and stuff, I had lost probably like 100 pounds or something like that. It was pretty normal for me all through my teens to gain and lose 50, 20, 75 pounds, gain it back, lose it, gain it back, that kind of thing. But when I moved back in with my folks, I really kind of quit eating. I would get like a box of Chex Mix or something like that and keep it in my room, and I would eat that for like a week, and that's all I would eat for a week. So I would have like, you know, a tiny handful of Chex Mix pretzels for a day or something like that. Of course, when you restrict your eating and stuff like that, you really don't feel well. It doesn't feel good. You feel pretty sick. And so I thought I was really, really sick and started going to doctors, started trying to see what was wrong with me. I was not thin. I was still, even if I had lost 50 pounds, I was still like around 170 pounds, which for my height is, on the BMI scale, is still considered overweight. So when I would go to doctors and they would ask me what I'm eating or what I'm not eating and how much weight I've lost and all that stuff, they'd kind of say, well, if you're losing weight, then, you know, you're doing okay. So it was a lot of run around with doctors, and I really feel like I had a lot of cries for help with doctors, and I just didn't know what to say to them or how to say it, and I truly didn't know what I was going through. I don't think that I realized that I was restricting my eating. I just thought I didn't feel good, and that's why I wasn't eating. I didn't realize that, you know, I didn't feel good because I wasn't eating. I didn't realize that all of these kind of mental health things all work in accordance with one another. Honestly, don't know if there was like an event or a catalyst for me going to seek treatment that finally worked. I think I actually ended up at a health clinic that part of their standard procedure for seeing people was to ask a mental health questionnaire. And while I was in there, the counselor or social worker or whoever went over those mental health questionnaires came in and just asked me a couple questions and asked me to come back and see her. And at this point, I hadn't been in therapy for probably 5 or 6 years. I'm 30 now. This happened around when I was 25. And I agreed to come back and see the social worker. Getting out of the house back then was really, really difficult. I would sob the entire way to the social workers. I would just be in tears. I would have to stop several times and catch my breath, and I always thought I was gonna throw up in the car, which really scared me. I had a lot of irrational fears about driving, you know, 3 minutes to the doctor's office. And like, I'm able to talk about this now, but to be honest, it almost feels like that happened to a different person. When I think about that now, I'm so far from what that was that it really just feels really good knowing that like that's not me anymore. But it also feels like, god damn, I wish I could go back and hold that person's hand and tell them, you know, tell them that this is gonna happen, that it's gonna be totally all right. And then it's gonna be a lot of work, but you know, that's okay. And that drive to the doctor's office is worth it, and to quit canceling fucking appointments. It's a weird thing to talk about this stuff that happened to your past self. And so I saw this social worker for a little bit, and she helped me get on medication. Being on medication was really hard for me as someone with anxiety and panic attacks and all of that shit. I'm constantly overthinking anything that I put into my body. I would be on WebMD for hours and hours and hours looking up symptoms of certain things and overanalyzing everything I took. You kind of know that things aren't right with your mind and your body, but you don't really know what to do. And it just gets a little scary because you can't trust yourself and you can't trust your body. And if you can't trust your body, how are you supposed to express what's happening to it to other people? So it gets really scary when you're thinking about taking pills and being in treatment and stuff, because you have to be this level of honest that works for you, but also like you don't want to be too honest because you're afraid you won't get the correct kind of treatment or someone will judge you in a weird way. The social worker that I worked with was just one of the kindest humans in the whole entire world, and she helped talk me through getting me on the correct medications and stuff. She really committed to to making sure that we did it correctly and to do it in a way that made me feel safe. I needed to take like serious baby steps, the teeny tiniest baby steps, and she did that with me. Once I found a medication that worked for me, I got on Lexapro. And things did not get better. They definitely didn't get better. It wasn't like I took a pill and magically things just went away. I needed a lot more therapy. But the thing that Lexapro did for me was it made it so that I was able to get out of bed consistently. It made it so that the paralyzing fear of driving to the doctor's office was only fear. It wasn't freezing me at home. Medication did not cure me in any way, shape, or form. Medication is what made it possible for me to be physically able to seek treatment more regularly. Once I was able to consistently show up at the social worker's office, which means I wasn't canceling appointments, I wasn't, making up excuses, I wasn't sitting outside the office and crying and saying I couldn't come in for an hour or something like that. Once I was able to wait in a waiting room without bursting into tears, my social worker recommended that I seek out group therapy. And that's terrifying. There is nothing that I have ever wanted to do in a group with people about my mental health. I'm not into that. I don't want to do that at all. But I did. The first time I went to group therapy, we were in a room and I think there were maybe 5 other people in my room, and I cried the entire time. I mean, the second I stepped foot in the door, I was crying. I couldn't say my name. I couldn't participate. I sat in a corner and the leader of the group kind of acknowledged my presence and that I was there, and I cried the entire fucking time. And a woman who I would later go on to really appreciate kind of said to me, "It's gonna get better. It'll be okay." And I cried through the next probably 3 groups. We kept getting together. I kept crying. Everything anybody would say made me cry. There was something incredibly vulnerable and terrifying about being in a group setting with people who could actively talk about their emotions, and I was just sitting there like, it doesn't feel good. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to express myself. I didn't know what I was doing there. I didn't even really know what the goal I wanted out of therapy was, so I just cried for a couple sessions. One of the group leaders asked if I would like to do an individual session with them because they thought I might benefit from it. And that person ended up being my therapist through the things that I consider my most beneficial and important treatment processes. I was not open to anything when I was in therapy. You know, when I say I was crying in therapy, that doesn't mean because I was ready to be vulnerable with people. I was crying because I was angry and uncomfortable and I didn't like it, and I didn't stop crying and then suddenly open up. I really just was there for a lot of therapy. I wasn't participating a lot. I was just kind of there. For all these like years of anxiety and panic attacks and stuff, I had developed some kind of risky behaviors. That means a lot of things, but mostly it means that I did a lot of very self-destructive things. They were self-destructive for my physical health, for my mental health, for my relationships. And when I started this individual therapy, I started kind of exploring those things that I do. And I received another kind of very loose diagnosis. I was told that I was going to be put in treatment for borderline personality disorder. For short, it's BPD. You can look up what BPD is. A lot of people consider it a lot of different things. It used to have a lot of it still has a lot of stigma that comes with the diagnosis. The important thing to remember is that diagnoses don't exist to pigeonhole you into something. Diagnosis really exists so that you can figure out what the best course of treatment is. It doesn't mean that you're stuck with something forever. It doesn't mean that you're a terrible human being. But of course, when I heard that diagnosis, it was pretty intense and I had a lot of feelings about it, and it took me a minute to process it. So I started dialectical behavior therapy, DBT for short, and it changed my entire life. It was and is like the most important thing I think I've ever been through. I was in DBT for close to 2 years. I think I could probably benefit from going back. I think I would probably benefit from going every week for the rest of my life. It is a therapy that I very, very much believe in. From that treatment and from gaining the support of DBT and a therapist who really took their time with me and continues to take their time with me, because I'm not the best patient in the whole world. I am very stubborn. I don't like to show up for appointments. But that DBT, finally getting into that specific therapy, is really what changed my life. And that therapy was, you know, an hour and a half once a week, and then I also had individual therapy for an hour once a week, and then I was also going to group therapy for an hour once a week. So I had 3.5 hours of therapy on different days at a mental health center, and it was intense. You know, you guys really are so kind to me and so sweet, and you leave comments that say things like, you know, I want to be like you, or I wish I had it together like you, or you guys, I think some of you really look up to me, and it's so amazing, and I feel so honored by that, and it's just, words can't describe how cool that is to me. You know, at the same time, I am not naturally this human being. I am naturally this human being. This is who I am, but for me to get to a place where I can be my most authentic self, to know who I am, to be able to share that with you guys. I've been in so much therapy for years and years. That's what my 20s were. I was in therapy the entire time. And you know, like, I'm so lucky to have been able to be in therapy, and it has not been a cheap endeavor by any stretch of the imagination. We don't think about that sometimes when you think about how much time and energy and money goes into therapy. All of you who think that I'm some kind of shining example of got it togetherness, there's a shitload of resources went into me. I mean, just an extraordinary amount of resources went into me and my life and creating this, you know, pretty mentally well human being. And over the last year, I've really felt like, man, I've done enough therapy. I'm kind of like, I'm over it. I'm cured. I'm good. Why do I need to go to therapy anymore? And you know, essentially that's why I'm making this video, to remind myself about all of the benefits that therapy has, to remind myself how lucky I am to be able to do all of this. And you know, I also want you guys to know that this shit is not easy. You know, this shit isn't easy. And I know that when you're 25 and crying in the therapist's office for the first time, it feels like it is not ever going to be okay. And I know sometimes it feels like you don't know what's wrong with you. And how could anyone help you if you can't get to the point where you can even tell anyone what's wrong? Therapy and working through my mental health issues did not come naturally to me. It was kicking and screaming the entire time. It is still kicking and screaming the entire time. And though I'm better at maybe articulating certain things, that doesn't mean now that I think that they're more fun. They're still really, really hard. That's my story about therapy and how many times I've been in it and what the kind of timeline for me going to therapy and stuff was. Feel free to ask me anything you want about me and mental health and my different diagnoses and all of that stuff. I would love to talk to you guys more about this. This video, just filming this video, has been really therapeutic for me. I've been putting off seeing my therapist for a couple months now, and I really have some things I need to work on. And I'm feeling very inspired to go call him, so that's good. I got out of this video what I needed. I hope you guys got something out of it too. Until next time, try and take care of yourselves. I love you guys. Bye.